Let's talk about my anti-racist journey. Well, first of all, I would say that my anti-racist journey starts with me as a little girl and sitting and listening to the stories of my grandparents, my parents, my aunts and uncles about their life in the American South and the injustices that they faced in the terrorized South, as well as in the North as migrants to Chicagoland. And so that's really where my anti-racist roots began. But when I think about myself as an anti-racist educator, I would think that those roots would have always been there, right? Because it's in my experience. It's steeped in my anti-racism is steeped in my experience and who my parents raised me to be. But I have to be honest, it wasn't until 2016, and I remember this very distinctly. It was the day after the election that a student came to my class visibly upset. And it was a student I knew really well. So I could tell that something was really off. And I invited that student into the hallway to have a conversation with me. The student shared that an encounter that he had had in the hallway on the way to class, where one of his peers shouted to him that you better be careful because you and your family will be shipped back to Mexico. This student of Mexican descent was mortified that his peer, his friend, would say this to him. And that's when I started to think, what am I doing? What would happen if I continue to ignore the racial reality that was happening around me? Quite frankly, I was just teaching the curriculum. I was thinking about race and equity, but it was peripheral, it wasn't centered. And that was my shift. And so I ask you that same question. What happens if you continue to ignore racial reality? What does the future look like for your students? And why aren't you doing it? Are you privileging the comfort of educators, parents, administrators, rather than giving your students the tools necessary to change oppressive systems and be advocates and change makers? That's what anti racist pedagogy is. And that's the premise of the anti racist English language arts classroom.